Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Denmark once again for the first time in what feels like a very long time. Now, we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel many times before, but my last review I did involving these guys appeared maybe about a year and a half ago, something like that. And this is a brewery that I used to come across all the time, but yeah, I was a bit surprised when I looked at the channel and saw that. But these guys are a very well established and very well respected name within the Danish craft beer scene. Very diverse in their output, they do lots and lots of different styles, and the beer is always pretty damn solid actually. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've had from this brewery many times before, one that I know they can do very, very well, and it's also a beer that I've been wanting to try from this brewery for quite some time, but I haven't had the opportunity to do so until now. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Denmark, like I said. We are going to go to the island of Sjælland, which is the easternmost of the bigger Danish islands, I guess we could say, and we are going to go to Copenhagen, the Danish capital. So we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Mikkeller. This one is from their Beer Geek series, which means it's an imperial stout, comes in at 11% ABV, and this one is the Beer Geek Fudgsicle. So this is brewed with cocoa, vanilla, lactose and butterscotch extract. I've heard very, very good things about this one. A lot of people have told me that I need to try this beer, but I just didn't come across it until now. I actually bought this one at the Mikkeller bar in Bangkok, along with a few other goodies which you'll see appearing on the channel over the next little while. But yeah, this one I was very, very excited to try when I saw it, so here we are. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. My first Mikkeller beer on the channel in like a year and a half or something like that, which is just crazy to think because I used to review these very regularly when I was in southern Sweden. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Mikkeller before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your home city, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Danish playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity these days, not as regularly as I would like, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Mikkeller once again then. So, Mikkeller are of course the famous Danish gypsy brewery, and they were founded back in 2006 by Christian Keller and Mikkel Bjergso, who they take their name from of course, but the company is now run exclusively by Mikkel Bjergso, who used to be a physics and maths teacher. So during his student days, he got a job at a cafe which introduced him to Belgian beers, and it was this that started to take him down the craft beer rabbit hole. But after he started work as a teacher, he would often stop at a bar on his way home for a beer, and it was at this bar that he fell in love with an IPA from a Danish brewery called Brookhouse, and this made him think, oh, maybe if I brew this beer for myself I can save a lot of money. And so he started homebrewing in around 2003, and he eventually left teaching in 2010 to commit full time to brewing. But again, these guys are very influenced by the American craft beer movement, and they basically started out as the homebrewing experimentations of Christian and Mikkel together. And from what I understand, Christian left the company because he wanted to kind of have a small core range of beers, whereas Mikkel wanted to go down the whole experimental route, which is one of the things that has made Mikkeller such a great success. But for a long time, these guys didn't have their own brewery, and they were brewing at a variety of host breweries in the US, Norway, Scotland and Belgium. Most of their beer for a long time was brewed at the De Proef Brouwerij in Lochristi near Ghent in Belgium, and their home base as such is the original Mikkeller bar in Copenhagen. They've also got a collaboration bar with Totul as well called Mikkeller and Friends. And that brewery was of course founded by some of Mikkeller's students, Tobias Emil Jensen and Tore Gainter, if I remember their names correctly. But in April of 2016, Mikkeller took over AleSmith's former brewery in San Diego after they moved on to a larger space. And then, in 2017, they announced that they would establish a second brewery at Citi Field, which is home of the New York Mets, over in New York City. The New York brewery, though, however, closed in October of 2020, and then it was announced in August of 2022 that they would cease their brewing operations in San Diego, and so that was the end of them having their own brewing facilities for the most part. They have a location in Copenhagen called Warpigs, which started as a collaboration with Three Floyds from the US, but it's been independent since 2021. There is also Warpig's USA brand, which is owned by Three Floyds these days, and they've got a location in Copenhagen as well called Balhavn, which was experimenting with sour beers. They had 12 oak fodders there from 3,000 to 7,000 litres and about 50 different, 225 litre California Chardonnay barrels to aged beers. And the beers were brewed at Warpigs, and then the kind of wort was transported up to Balhavn to be aged and blended, and they had a lab there as well, which allowed them to isolate new strains of wild yeast and things like that. So they were producing really unique sour beers there. But in April of 2023, unfortunately, they decided that they would cease production at Balhavn, although the bar is still open. That Refshaløen area is pretty well known for like street food and all of these kind of things. There's some really good things going on up there. But they've got various locations these days for bars. There's one in Berlin, Paris. They've got a sort of bar that they share in Amsterdam as well. There's one in Stockholm, Tallinn, Tórshavn, and Zurich in Europe. They've also got a brew pub in London, and in Asia they've got a few locations. A couple of them in Tokyo. I think there's 2 or 3 these days. They've got one up near Sapporo in Hokkaido, another one in Kyoto, and then a bar in Bangkok. And I really do recommend you check out the Bangkok one actually. It's a really, really nice location. So yeah, looking forward to going and visiting that again. But these days, a lot of their beer is brewed at Lervig in Stavanger up in Norway. That's where they brew most of their imperial stouts, from what I understand. They brew a lot of their IPAs and lighter beers at Toril City in Svininge on Sjælland in Denmark, and I believe there is a portion of it is still brewed at the Proefbrouwerij in Lochristenhoofde in Ghent in Belgium as well. But as of May 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, Mikkeller have produced 1,300 beers according to Untappd. I'm honestly not sure if that includes the ones that they produced at Mikkeller San Diego as well. We've had a couple of those on the channel over the years. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Mikkeller for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Untappd page to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, these guys are a very, very famous name in the I was going to say the European craft beer scene, but these guys are pretty much are pretty well known worldwide. So yeah, one of the breweries that you should have a look at if you get the chance in the Beer Geek series is always pretty good. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for our history section and go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. I want to say the art on these beers, is it Simon Henshaw is the guy's name? I forget. But of course Mikkeller have these, Mikkeller has this very, very famous style of artwork that's become synonymous with their name. You can see plain silver top on the can there. It's still got the Thai import sticker on the back, but it doesn't really say very much about the beer otherwise. But yeah, this one seems to have been, it says that I think this one might have been brewed in Denmark actually, because it says issue, it's got the Mikkeller DK on the back, so maybe this one has been brewed at Toril City rather than up in Norway. And I guess that would make sense because the ones that come from Norway are usually the 330 milliliter cans, and I haven't seen those in quite a wee while, come to think of it. But yeah, as I said, this one comes in at 11% ABV. It is an imperial oatmeal stout brewed with cocoa and vanilla, but I heard it has a little bit of butterscotch extract and stuff like that in it too. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. I'm really looking forward to this one. Ooh. So a little bit of smoke as we open up the can there, and we'll put it out for the moment. So here we are. So we've got most of the beer out and into the can. That head is going to fade away very, very quickly though. So yeah, you can see that when we poured the beer, it had a lovely little kind of quarter finger of a frothy, I would have said kind of medium tan head, but that has of course faded away to be pretty much nothing. I will say you can see a good little bit of carbonation just coming up to the surface of the liquid there, but there's not too much visible otherwise. But yeah, maybe that'll calm down as the beer sort of warms up and airs out a little bit. But yeah, colour wise with this one, you can see that it's poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour, which is exactly what you would expect of an imperial stout. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But with black beers like porters and stouts, you don't often have to, you don't often have to care about that, because it's kind of impossible to influence the colour of these black beers. I've only seen it done once or twice, to be honest with you. But yeah, if we shine the light through this one, this is pretty damn opaque. It's just got a little bit of a kind of cola. It's just got a little bit of a kind of cola coloured edge to it, but yeah, pretty damn dark beer, this one, which is what you'd expect in all honesty. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider, in appearance wise, when you consider what style it is. I think we can leave the appearance section at that and go on and have a wee look at the aroma of this one then. So yeah, let's have a wee look at that and see what we have here. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this one smells really pretty damn nice. First impression of it is it's got quite a lot of the sort of Scottish English Christmas puddingy type vibe to it. So yeah, wasn't quite expecting that. I thought it was going to be a good little bit sweeter, if you like. So but once your nose adjusts to that, in fairness, you do get quite a bit more brown sugar out of this one. So yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, it's got everything you'd expect. You've got the big kind of cakey, brown sugary, chocolatey backbone to this one. Lots of good little bit of fruity character, and just a little touch of green component actually. So yeah, let's just break that aroma down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer for me, the backbone of the beer for me, you've got that really nice kind of, you can smell a little bit of like an almost rye bready bread crust in there. Yeah, a little bit of a rye bready bread crust in there. Wee bit of woody character, as they say. Not really much cracker with this one. It's more like a kind of, you know, maybe the backbone of this beer is actually a cake edge. You know, the bit of the cake that sticks to the bit of the cake that sticks to the baking tray. Yeah, I think that's kind of what it's like. So yeah, sort of cake edge. Definitely some rye bread in there, like I've said. A little bit of wholemeal brown bread for sure as well. Then there's a bunch of things going on, like, you know, big oily chocolate brownies in there. Yeah, nice big oily chocolate brownie, like chocolate muffin, chocolate sponge, all of these kind of things. And yeah, the actual chocolate that comes out of this beer, I think, is really nice too. So for me, the chocolatey side of this one, you have like the chocolatey side of this beer. I think it's got a good mix. I mean, you maybe get like it's on the sweeter side of things. You've got a sort of 50-60% cocoa chocolate in there, but you've also got the more milky chocolate, you know, the sort of 30-40% cocoa chocolate. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, I really enjoy how that pieces together in this one. So yeah, 50-60% cocoa chocolate. Yeah, 50-60% cocoa chocolate, and you've also got that more milky kind of chocolatey character coming out of this one. So yeah, I like that with this beer for sure. On top of the chocolate, you start to get the brown sugars, and the brown sugars are a whole mix of sort of things. I'm pretty sure the thing about there being butterscotch extract in this is right. Struggling with the colour of this label actually. But yeah, it's got lactose. Doesn't say anything about. Yeah, it's got cocoa nibs, as we know, vanilla toast. But yeah, it really does smell like the brown sugar in this one is quite apparent. Like there's definitely there's definitely a little bit of treacle and molasses in there for sure, whatever you want to call it. It has a sort of fudgy element to it as well, hence the name Fudgsicle. Butterscotch. There's a bit of a toasty brown sugar. And yeah, maybe a little bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuit and things as well. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. The yeasty side of this beer, I would say it's quite the yeasty side of this beer is quite interesting, because I think that's where you're getting most, the yeasty stuff at the back of the nose, that's where you're getting most of this kind of Scottish English Christmas pudding coming out of it. So yeah, the Scottish English Christmas pudding is quite interesting. Really reminds me, yeah, my dad always liked Christmas pudding as his birthday cake in February, so I'm very, very familiar with that. But yeah, you get that sort of almost like brandy soaked just plum pudding type thing out of that. So that's really the character that's coming out of the yeasty side of the beer. But it does have a wee bit of an almost sweet rye bready character and kind of bread crusty note to it as well. There's a few elements of nuttiness and stuff coming out of the beer into the nose as well. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is pretty nice. So this beer, it gets a big thumbs up from me. I really like how the malty and yeasty side of this beer goes together. Now, yeah, the hoppy side of things, there's not too much to report in terms of green component here, but remember, the Imperial Stout is not the most hop-forward style of beer anyway, but you do still get a little bit of hoppy character in this one. There's a wee bit of earthiness, a wee bit of woodiness, floral aromaticity, and a little touch of grassiness as well. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is pretty nice. So yeah, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of floral note, and a wee bit of grassiness. These are all things that you would expect, in all honesty. Now, the fruity side of this beer, it's yeah, the fruity side of this beer is kind of what you'd expect as well. I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as raisins with this one, because it's not quite sharp enough. There's a lot of big juicy plum in this, drier prunes underneath, quite a little bit of date and fig as well, I would add. So yeah, dates, figs, a wee bit of sultana, and quite a little bit of like black currant and blackberry, I would say. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, in this one is it's really pretty nice. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like that with this beer. The way it goes together is really, really nice. So there's nothing really unexpected about this one, or nothing really unusual about the aroma, but it does just smell pretty nice. But a little bit more, as I say, perhaps a little bit more kind of cakey and things than I thought it was going to be. I don't know if we can really term this one an imperial pastry stout. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the aroma section of the video, and we can go on and actually have a taste of this one. So yeah, this one is the Beer Geek Fudgsicle, an 11% Imperial Stout from Mikkeller, the famous Danish gypsy brewery. My first Mikkeller beer on for review in quite some time, actually. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's quite nice. I mean, it's not quite as sweet as I thought it might be, but in fairness, when we go back to the Beer Geek series, you know, the Beer Geek Brunch, I think is the if I remember rightly, yeah, the Beer Geek, or is it Beer Geek Breakfast? I forget. Those are some of the kind of classics from Mikkeller. Those are the really old school imperial stouts, and they were like, you know, big oatmeal stouts with quite a little bit of coffee and things in them. And this beer does have, it's not a pastry stout anyway, and yeah, as I've said on the channel many a time, I'm not a great fan of the modern pastry stouts with that kind of marzipan or granola type flavour that they can have. This one I do like though. This is, yeah, it just feels that little bit more. I like my Imperial Stouts a wee bit more old school, I would say. So this one has that nice, I hesitate to call it RIS. It has that nice roasty backbone to it, and the sweetness is a little bit drier and coming out more into the aftertaste. So yeah. But yeah, this is a really, really nice, yeah, really, really nice Imperial Stout, this one. Yeah, really nice stuff. Let's break it down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So, one of the things I maybe should have mentioned earlier in the video is that there's a couple of ways you can play with the Imperial Stout as a style. You can do barrel aging, which is of course where you're going to sacrifice a little bit of the mouthfeel for the more infused flavours. You can do a double mash, which is going to give you a really big, thick, sort of sticky mouthfeel. You can add a bunch of adjuncts in there and do whatever you want. And yeah, there's one that I'm missing. Ah, yeah, you can do a longer wort boil, which is going to give you the more kind of complex brown sugary sort of notes. This one actually doesn't, you know, this one is obviously more of an adjuncty leaning Imperial Stout, but it gives you like, it kind of feels like it's again a little bit more old school. It feels like they've not played with this one too much in a sense. But yeah, for the Beer Geek, they obviously have a base recipe that they work with, and they just muck around with that a little bit. But yeah, this one feels kind of straight edge in a way to me, and it just wasn't quite as sweet as I was expecting. But again, I do like it. Let's just break down the flavour though and describe that for you a wee bit more in depth. The aftertaste in this one's lovely. So if we go to the middle third of your palate then, yeah, if we go to the middle third of your palate, the backbone of the beer, there is, I hesitate to call it like roasty, toasty, well-fired black malt. It's not quite that. It feels a little bit softer, maybe Carafa. You know, Carafa's a trademarked malt variety. There's a few different varieties of it from Weiermann in Bamberg in Germany, and it feels like a slightly toasty rye bready bread crust. It's kind of like that. Again, in the aroma, I was comparing it to the bit of cake edge that gets stuck to the baking tray. So your backbone of the beer is a little bit like that. If you go further forward, there's a little bit of woody character in there as well, which lingers into the aftertaste. Above that, you get a little bit of a more crackery sort of note out of it. So yeah, a lovely little bit of crackery character in there. Then above that, you get there's a bit of a rye bready character, and it's kind of a dry rye bready note in this one. Yeah, kind of a slightly drier rye bready note. Then there's a wholemeal brown bready character above that, and then you start to get the kind of cakey notes and things like that out of this one. So there's a sort of chocolate sponge cake. Yeah, there's a chocolate sponge cake note out of this one. Then above that, you get a slightly more dense. It's like a kind of squidgy chocolate brownie. You really get that. And I think within the chocolate brownie layer, there's a few kind of nutty elements with this one, which is really interesting. The nuttiness kind of comes out a wee bit more into the aftertaste. Now, above that, you have above the kind of chocolate brownie squidgy layer, you start to get the chocolatey side of this beer. And I will say that the chocolatey side of this beer is a lot darker than it's a lot darker than in the flavour than you would have expected from the aroma. So further back, you have the kind of more dry side of the cocoa nibs, like almost a slightly charred chocolate. So you get that dry, dusty cocoa nibby sort of thing further back. Then as you move further forward from that, it's it's kind of, I think as I often say, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So yeah, further back you've got the more cocoa nibby, dusty sort of things coming out of it. And then as you move further forward from that, it's got a little bit more of a yeah, it's got a little bit more of how would we say, maybe 60-70% cocoa chocolate. It's still quite dark actually. The chocolate I thought was going to be a bit more milky than this. So yeah, like sort of toasty cocoa nibs further back, 60-70% cocoa nibs further forward. On top of that, you do maybe get a slightly, you start to get the brown sugary notes. So there's a kind of toasty brown sugar in there. Then the next layer up is like a slightly more kind of leathery brown sugar, but I will add to that, there's not been an overly long wort boil on this one, you can tell that straight away. But then in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's that really oily treacle molasses sort of thing, which is the alcohol. It's surrounded by a sweeter caramel, and then yeah, you do get a little bit of a butterscotchy type thing out of this one. But the more I drink this beer, the less convinced I am that there is butterscotch extract in there. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate in the beer at this point. I don't think there's anything else we really need to say about it other than that, yeah, the woody, nutty and roasty flavours are the things that linger there into the aftertaste. So yeah, that's that. So border region between middle and back third of your palate. Again, you get that little bit of kind of bready build up in there. There's the sort of rye bready character in the base, the wholemeal brown bread in the middle, then the more dense, cakey sort of notes above that, kind of drier things. And yeah, between the middle and back third of your palate, you're going to get very similar flavours, just at different intensities. So yeah, the back third of your palate, you've got the really nice kind of sort of more toasty, it's like a more toasty well-fired bread crust on the back third of your palate. Then you've got a bit of a crackery layer, the rye bready note out of this one, the wholemeal brown bready note above that. Those two layers are a little bit lighter, drier and more airy. Then above that you have a kind of more chocolate sponge type layer, which again feels a little bit lighter and more airy. You can feel the kind of Jacob's cream crackery note creeping over the top of, you can feel the kind of cocoa nibs creeping over the top of that, the drier cocoa nibs, and some of the toastier brown sugars and slightly leathery brown sugars as well. Then above that you've got all the yeasty notes coming out of the beer. So let's look at those yeasty characters for the moment. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer, for me, it's quite the yeasty side of this beer for me, at its core, it's it's got a little bit more of that kind of English phenolic Christmas puddingy type character to it. So yeah, oily English Scottish Christmas puddingy sort of notes coming out of this one. Then as you go further out from it, it's got a little bit more of a kind of chocolate spongy character, and then the very edge of it is that kind of cake edge stuck to the baking tray type thing. But the yeastiness, it's quite sweet in the beginning, but then it kind of dries out and becomes more toasty a little bit later on. I think it's most definitely fair to say that about it. So yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that goes together is pretty interesting too. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. Hoppy side of things for this one, as I say, there's not too much to report with the green component in this beer. You do get a little bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate there. As you move further forward, it's a little bit kind of herbal and woody, and as you move further forward from that, it's got a little bit more of a kind of floral note to it too. And then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together in this one, I think, is really, really nice. So, yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is very, very nice. The green component just adds a little bit more depth to the beer, I would say. Yeah, so let's go to the front third of your palate then, and the the fruity side of things. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. Again, you've got the rye bread in the base, the wholemeal brown bread in the middle, then the more sort of cakey character on top of that. The base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you get the sort of toasty cake edge sort of thing, the cracker, the rye bread, the wholemeal brown bread, and then the more sort of chocolate spongy, chocolate brownie kind of stuff. Some of the brown sugars creep further forward. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's look at that fruity side of things. Yeah. So the fruity side of the things with the beer is quite the fruity side of this beer is kind of quite similar to what I described from the aroma, if you like. So at the back you get nice big oily plums. There's a little bit of prune. Yeah, there's plums in there, prune underneath that, and then I think at the back you're getting a lot of like stewed dates, and then there's sultanas as you move further forward, and you've got that nice you've got a nice more oily kind of figgy character in the middle of the front third of your palate. And I think as you go into the front half of the front third of your tongue, I find it quite black curranty, but there's not really that kind of sharper blackberry notes. I think, yeah, it's plums, dates, sultanas, and a bit of fig. Those are the main things, pardon me, that are coming out of this beer for me on the fruity side. But yeah, it's the kind of Christmas pudding, the cocoa nibs, and the kind of big brown sugary notes that really linger there in the aftertaste. I like the kind of roasty, I don't know if roasty's the, well, yeah, roasty toasty backbone. This beer really has that roasty toasty backbone, but it's got like a big oily, cakey, dry sweetness on top of it. I think that's a good way to kind of summarise what's going on here. And then you've got the kind of drier, fruity characters lingering into the aftertaste too. Really interesting beer, this one. I will say that from a flavour profile perspective, it's quite different to what I expected, to be honest, but I've enjoyed it nonetheless. Yeah, so to round off this review, let's have a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. For me, I'd say this beer, it's kind of bottom end of full bodied for me. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a lovely, slick, oily character to it. Yeah, so lovely big slick oily note to this one. IBU wise, it's a bit difficult to place because it is a little bit roasty and toasty, and it does have a wee bit of bitterness to it. But yeah, the way, like, putting it all together is yeah, putting it all together is quite difficult. It's kind of difficult to come up with a number. Maybe I think technically speaking this one won't be too high in terms of IBU, but the cocoa nibby dryness combined with the sort of toasty cake edge that I was talking about earlier, along with the hops, it feels like it should be maybe 40 or 50 IBUs, but I'm pretty sure just from the the flavour makes it feel like that, but it doesn't actually feel that bitter, if that at all makes sense. So yeah, feels like it's a sort of 40-50 IBU beer, but I think in reality it's too smooth to be that bitter. But yeah, the backbone of the beer, a bit toasty underneath, smoother in the middle, and then you've got a kind of drier, oily sweetness on top. There's a wee bit of a kind of phenolic-y thing going on with the yeast at the back of the palate as well, and lovely kind of oily, dry, fruity notes out of this beer too. But all in all, a really, really interesting one, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity to try this because I've heard from quite a few people that this is a really nice beer, and I have to agree with them, but just it didn't, how do you say, the flavour profile is quite different from what I was expecting in a sense. But when I think about that, it fits with what I've had from the Beer Geek series before. But when I was thinking Fudgsicle, I thought, oh, this is I thought it was going to be a lot sweeter and a lot more kind of chewy than it is. So I like that, how it's kind of stuck to the roots of the series, and I like how they've kind of combined a bit of sweetness, but also stuck to the roots of the series. So I've enjoyed this one, and it's made me think a little bit. I think we can safely say that. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. This one was the Beer Geek Fudgsicle, an 11% Imperial Oatmeal Stout with cocoa nibs vanilla, and I'm not sure about the butterscotch extract in this one. A really interesting beer, my first from Mikkeller in quite a wee while, and it certainly has made me think a little bit. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one as well. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Mikkeller as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. I do have one of their sour beers to have a look at quite soon, and hopefully we can do more beyond that. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Mikkeller's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.